Welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by Sam Mulliner. It's time for the latest episode of the Mulliner and Musgrove Show. It's a pleasure to have you guys join us. It's a pleasure to welcome Sam back onto the show. Down in Portsmouth once again, Sam, working hard?
Yeah, just come off air about 25 minutes ago, doing the Moda Super Series darts. So I've just ran back to the hotel room when you messaged me because going out with some of the crew tonight to a Brazilian restaurant. Looking forward to it. Lovely stuff. But yeah, no, it's busy, but it's good. It's fun, and yeah, get to go home tomorrow though, and should be back in time for the PSG kickoff, which is now today when this comes out.
Two things to note. I forgot that Sam was working down in Portsmouth. So when he did come on camera, he was looking very, very smart. Kind of took my breath away because usually, you're in your slacks, your little Newcastle United tracksuit, but looking rather dashing there.
That's why they pay me the bucks. I make the effort to wear a shirt and put some product in my hair.
Also, though, blended in nicely to whichever hotel chain you're staying at with that wall behind you.
Yes. Well, when I travel, it's nice to lodge. So, yeah, it's not high budget by any stretch. But yeah, it'll do.
And finally, before we get on to the topic of this show, and there's plenty of topics because it's a bit of a Q&A session about transfers and the season so far. It looks like a bit of sunlight behind you. Where up here on Tyneside, it is blown a gale. All the sandy beaches have disappeared because it's been so stormy. Trees are coming down. It's absolute chaos up here.
No, the Isle of Pompey is it's been all right actually. Just if I'm not going to get up and show you out the window, but there are a couple of ferries just at the port there, ready to set sail to France, and yeah, it's quite nice down south. The southern air is choking slightly. I have to get further north of at least Watford Gap to get back to God's country, but no, it's not too chilly here, all things considered.
Do we reckon there'll be some Newcastle United fans on those ferries, or do you go elsewhere? I don't know where you go. You go to Dover, do you?
I would say so. I think Portsmouth to Cherbourg is the route here. Not that I would have ventured there, but yeah. Given that the flight to Paris for the squad was delayed yesterday, yeah, maybe setting sail would be slightly more sensible, if not more time consuming.
I mean, there's been some fantastic videos recently of the ferry from Newcastle to Amsterdam, and how how brave the captain must be as it rocks side to side. I imagine it's a different experience on board to the scary one it looks like watching from the coastline. But on Paris, Sam, it is Newcastle United versus PSG. What are your thoughts on this game? Newcastle in a really good bit of form in the Champions League, in the top 8. They have qualified for the playoff round, but they do stand a really good chance of getting through to the next phase, which would save the legs. They would miss out on a couple of games, which is what we want, a bit of energy in the bank. What's your thoughts on Wednesday and maybe the bigger picture as well?
I think we have done what is expected of us in this Champions League, which has been our crumb of comfort really this season. When it comes to the Premier League, I'm really not a happy bunny. But we're not talking about that, so I will refrain from venting my severe discontent and frustration. But the Champions League has been good. We've done what is expected of us. I'm pretty relaxed going into the PSG game. I'm not expecting a whole lot. PSG are a phenomenal side. They've got players back from AFCON and back from injury as well. So I'll be honest, my expectations for the match itself as a standalone aren't high, aren't great. But I don't think that really matters. And that is because a draw probably won't be enough to stay in the top 8 either, given that it's so condensed in and around that those final qualification spots. But that's okay. We've won the home games we should have won. That PSV win was massive, and we got the away win in Belgium as well, and got a handy point on the road at Leverkusen. Yes, you could say we could have won that game. We should have maybe got something in Marseille But at the end of the day, I think we would have all accepted finishing in that sort of ninth to that top half in that the second leg of the first knockout phase will be at home. I think that was my sort of expectation, and they've delivered on that. I've priced up flights to a few potential opposing venues for February, as I've no real interest of going to Paris. Well, I can't. I'm working, even though I'm halfway there already. But yeah, we've done what we were expected to do, and it's good that the European adventure continues, because we might not be getting one next year.
Well, yes, we'll get across that bridge if indeed we get to it. But it's going to be a fascinating battle in Paris. I know people aren't too confident about it, but as I said on the match preview, led by blind faith more than anything, I just got a sneaky little feeling Newcastle will get a really good result against PSG. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But it could be the game for Anthony Elanga, a man who has failed to live up to his price tag, has been frustrating to say the least, has showed glimpses in cameos in recent games, but still nothing to really write home about. I know, Sam, you were never his biggest fan, and you feel like you've potentially been proved right. You did warn Newcastle against signing him back in the summer, but let's put that aside. Could this game be made for him in terms of the fact that Newcastle are going to have limited possession of the ball? They're going to have to sit back and absorb, and it's going to be all about how quick they move the ball up the pitch on the counter when indeed they do get the chance to. And someone like him should, in theory, given previous good seasons that we've seen him at Nottingham Forest, really make the most of that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I take no pleasure whatsoever in quote unquote being proven right. I love being proved wrong, if anything, because that means it tends to mean that something good has happened. But Elanga, it wasn't a slant on him or his ability in the summer. I just don't think he was the right fit, or and at any stage was what we needed. In essence, what we needed in the summer was just a better Miguel Almiron. The type of player Almiron was working in that. Look at that fourth place season where Almiron played well and above his usual form lines. That's what we needed, someone with a higher ceiling and a higher level of consistency, but that same sort of mold of player, which is why I banged the drum for Kubo. Elanga isn't going to break down a low block. That's not his game. How is it he runs in behind? You can't run in behind when you've got 11 players behind the ball. So, to your point about, is this a game for Elanga? Yes. Yes, it is. Nuno Mendes, if he's fit, we believe he is back fit, he's going to venture forward a lot, because he's a phenomenal young left back. Two fantastic left backs are going to be on display in that match. So he should get space in behind. That's there to be utilised. The only sort of question mark surrounding that is his quality of delivery and his crossing and his final ball, which in the main hasn't been there either. So yes, I agree, it is the game for him, and I'd be putting Barnes on the left. I know Gordon's performing in the Champions League, but my word, something has to change there. You cannot keep doing this to Harvey Barnes. You just can't, and keep expecting different results. If I was Thomas Tuchel, I'd be on the phone to Anthony Gordon saying, book your ideas up or you ain't on the plane, because that's the way it's going. He's in big danger of not just losing his place in the England side, but in the England squad, which was nailed on guaranteed at the start of this season. Yeah, it's been pretty pathetic from out wide, and we did a previous podcast about how crucial our wingers are. We got exposed against Villa, because they can play with inverted wingers that can come narrow and utilise those as maybe as tens. It's just not worked this season. So it is a game for Elanga. It's an opportunity for him. I'd be surprised if he doesn't start, because it doesn't really take much identifying to suggest that this is a game for Elanga and to utilise his pace on the counter-attack. That is his game. That's not the way Newcastle tend to play when you're pushing for top 4 or 5 finishes every season, when you're going to have teams come to St James's Park looking to shut up shop and play for a draw on occasions. But this is a game where we are the underdogs. They're the reigning European champions. They are a quality side now. They're not Mbappe FC. They've got so many unbelievable young talents. Hakimi's back from AFCON. He's probably going to take his place because Zaire Emery, their young midfield starlet, has been covering at right back of late. Does that ring any bells? But yeah, Elanga, this is an opportunity. We saw in glimpses at home to Barcelona, but the quality of pass wasn't really there consistently. But this is his chance, and he has to take it.
Certainly so, and fingers crossed he does. Although, if he does start on the wing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's for Harvey Barnes, as much as I don't agree with that decision. But I just don't think Eddie Howe is going to drop Anthony Gordon. We've seen in recent games that Anthony Gordon is now the one that is substituted, and we saw that over the weekend against Aston Villa. He came off the pitch, and Elanga was the one that came on, I think, to memory. But so maybe something is starting to change in the mindset of Eddie Howe, and maybe Anthony Gordon isn't as well protected as he once was. But I agree with you. I think he needs a really, really stern message delivered that his position in the World Cup squad is in danger. And I've been saying for weeks, it's time to drop him because he's just not doing it. He's not at the level we know he can get to, but more importantly, not at the level that I think he thinks he's at. Maybe that's doing him a disservice. Maybe he's well aware he's been performing below our expectations. He is actually, funny enough, the man up for questions at the PSG Stadium on Tuesday evening. It'll be Eddie Howe and Anthony Gordon answering questions from the press. So I'm sure he'll be asked about his form, and I'm going to be really intrigued to see what he says about that. From one winger, Sam, to another, who I know you would be quite keen to see in a black and white shirt, and he looks like he is going to be playing in a black and white shirt, but not the black and white shirt of Newcastle United, but instead the black and white shirt of Fulham. Mr. Oscar Bobb. Newcastle United fans will still be scarred by a late winner he scored a few years back up at St James's Park, a man with clear talent, and it looks like Fulham are going to get themselves a bit of a bargain with an initial payment of £35 million. At the time of recording, talks have advanced, nothing yet agreed. By the time this goes out, it may be done, it may not be. I think it probably will get done regardless of when it does. That is a brilliant bit of business by Fulham if they can get that one over the line.
Yeah, he was one of the players I highlighted in the summer that I said we should be looking at. But again, it's been another paceless window from Newcastle. Everything about Newcastle United. I was going to say this season, but you know what? It was before then. It was the tail end of last season as well. People forget we bottled that last match of the season at home to Everton. We bottled it. And thankfully, Aston Villa did the same, so that we got that 5th place finish. Towards the back end of that season and into this one, we reek of mediocrity. We are so mediocre, and the table reflects that. Yes, we could have gone 4th if we'd have beaten Villa. We didn't beat Villa. We wouldn't have gone 4th. Results didn't go our way. This renewal of the Premier League is so poor. Villa had a terrible summer window. They're not having a great January. They're looking to bring back Tammy Abraham and Douglas Luiz, who are nothing special. Their windows haven't been good, and yet there they are in a title race. It wouldn't have taken that much for us to be there. But I mean, you berated me after calling us amateur in the summer window. I stand by it. Elanga wasn't right for us after chasing him for 2 years. Ramsey was the big disappointment for me in that I thought he could have been our Elliot Anderson. But since he has pulled on a black and white shirt, Jacob Ramsey has not shown any desire to have a career in professional football. He has been pathetic. Malik Thiaw and Nick Voltemade. I don't like to see criticism on Voltemade. He is feeding off scraps, and he is brilliant and will continue to be brilliant in the future. Thiaw, there's just some defensive errors creeping in on a more consistent basis, but he can't be taken out of the team at the moment. And in the main, he's been a fantastic signing for us as well. But we're letting opportunities go like Ryan from Vasco da Gama that's just gone to Bournemouth as well. They've shoved in £100 million, €100 million actually, release clause in his contract. Given Bournemouth's recruitment record over, 4 or 5 years, you would say that was shrewd. Oscar Bobb, if he stays fit, that's looking shrewd. But we are so far behind, and we're hiding behind the excuse of PSR.
Interesting that you mentioned there Luiz and Tammy Abraham, who look like they're going to sign for Villa this window. You didn't speak about them in the most complimentary of lights there. Would you not take either of them at Newcastle on a short-term deal?
No.
Not just to cover themselves until. So I know Abraham looks like it's going to be a permanent deal of 18 million quid, but Luiz is one on loan. But Villa seem to be the only ones really doing any business. You mentioned Bournemouth there, but it's been quiet, hasn't it? A quiet month. Why do you think that is?
It always seems to be the way these days, though, in January, doesn't it? Douglas Luiz looked good at Villa, didn't he? But hasn't kicked on to even replicate that level of form. He's tailed off massively. Abraham, I've never rated, I've got to be honest. So no, I would not take them. I don't think they really add value. Villa's transfer business in the summer, like Gesson and players like that, they haven't worked out either. But yet, their players that they still have delivered and keep on delivering. Whereas ours haven't. Gordon hasn't. Tonali's suffered a slump in form. Joe Linton had a dip in form at the start of the season. He's coming back into things now as well. We're relying on Barnes on the right hand side because Murphy, there's fitness issues there. Elanga has been awful. And we've got 2 new strikers, one obviously suffering with fitness battles of his own doing. And Voltemada, a young striker, still finding his way in the Premier League, who's excelled up until the last couple of games, of which he's had to come off the bench to do so. January, there's no hiding place because everyone knows your situation. If you're desperate, if you're in a relegation battle, if you need to kick on and find an extra level to hit those European placings, and when deals can be done for what appear to be value, it's big teams like Man City overpaying on wages to blow other teams out of the water to stop them being competitive, or like Chelsea do pretty much every transfer window for the past couple of 3 years, just signing players to stop other players to stop other teams signing them. It makes the market borderline stupid. It's difficult.
Would you like the market to go back to how it once was, where you could just sign players throughout?
It'd be interesting to see what happens, because then the shackles would be off. We could increase our wage bill, and interestingly as well, I think we're suffering from turmoil off the pitch. Obviously, there was issues with Paul Mitchell. PIF never really got involved, from what we know of, and Hopkinson and Wilson are playing catch up. It's going to take time to turn things around. I think last summer has set us back a couple of years. I think something in the recruitment area needs to change, and I don't think it's with Steve Nixon, who's done sterling work over the last few years. These tried and tested Premier League signings just haven't worked out, and I think there needs to be more questions asked about Andy Howe. To be brutally honest, he hasn't delivered, and the way the windows are, would you really want to entrust them with 200-400 million if you're going to spend it on Premier League signings? I'm not sure. There is value to be had out there, as we've discussed over the years. It would be interesting if things went back to how they were, but it's not going to happen. We're still going to have to go along with PSR, and it's very interesting that, again, like Peter Silverstone has now left us. He's just started with Juventus, hasn't he? Villa's revenue has eclipsed ours and kicked on an extra level. They're in the Deloitte top 20 now, of top 20 in terms of revenue and income generated. We're nowhere to be seen. Why is that? Why is the progress been so sedate over the last couple of years?
Well, yeah, it's a work in progress, I guess, isn't it? And it's all about the bigger picture. It was never going to happen overnight, I guess. And we're all impatient for Newcastle United to tap into every revenue source possible and increase that revenue. I guess it's the word that none of us really want to hear, but it is about patience. Unfortunately, it's not an easy task, I guess, to grow. Silverstone, I think, did a decent enough job, gets a bit of stick, but actually, we look at the numbers; they were pretty. They were all right. Could have been maybe a little bit better, but I don't think he did a bad job necessarily. But with David Hopkinson now there, I think that's going to be hopefully the game changer.
I agree.
Premier League experience, and we can go back and forth. And I don't really want to have an in-depth discussion about this because we've already really aired our points in previous episodes. But you sign Elanga, hasn't worked, but it could have been Brian Mbeumo. That's worked. It's not. We can't sit here and just close the door on Premier League experience. We would have snapped anyone's hand off if they'd offered us Antoine Semenyo. Premier League proven. It's just about getting the right player and right profile. And so far, it looks like Elanga isn't that fit. However, closing the door on Premier League experience, I don't think is the right thing, because I think it's all about the right player and luck sometimes as well. And hopefully, Elanga, Ramsey can prove themselves Wissa as well. Go on then.
And Mbeumo is a completely different player to Elanga. It's not the fact that it's Premier League proven. You're sort of half right in the point I was trying to make. The Premier League proven bit isn't the entire issue. It's the type of player. And Mbeumo isn't the same player as Elanga. It's not the same type of player. Semenyo has been masterful over the course of an elongated period of time. That's why he's got his move to Manchester City. And again, it's no surprise to see him hit the ground running there. But it's about the right type of player of what we needed. And I don't believe at all, I didn't at the time, I still don't know, that Elanga was the type of right winger we needed. If we look at how things lie and go back to the summer, we still need every position we highlighted in the summer in terms of additions. We still need a right winger, right-sided centre-half. We still need a bit of a midfielder, and we still need an attacker. That's exactly the same place as where we were in the summer.
Yeah, and that highlights the concern for many that the window wasn't good and it has set the club back. But look, as I said in previous episodes, I'm not going to cast judgment until the end of the season. Still enough time for the likes of Ramsey, Wissa and Elanga to show that they were the right signings to be made. And yes, led by a little bit of blind faith, but I'm going to keep everything crossed that they can prove to be the signings Newcastle United needed, even though it's taken a little longer than it would usually do. Just final question then, before we sign off, and we'll let you go and enjoy the afternoon sun on the south coast. Kieran Trippier, back in the side, 34 years of age. No word on what's going to happen come the end of the season, out of contract. Plenty of debate to whether Newcastle should offer him a new deal, whether they shouldn't. What's your thoughts? And have you seen enough in his return to say that he should be offered a contract extension?
I think it's an absolute no-brainer. He has to have another year, whether it's even as a player coach sort of thing. What we've seen from Trippier in terms of his leadership qualities, yes, I know he's not the player he was and he's lost a yard of pace. I fully appreciate that. But just to have him around the squad and coming into the side to do a job and imparting wisdom and advice, like we saw the other day with him and Elanga. Elanga has never had guidance on the pitch from a player before. All he's had is frustration from Livramento. And I can fully see Tino's point of view. But Trippier was talking to Elanga, trying to forge a relationship, trying to guide him. that stuff's priceless. He's an out and out true leader. He'll go on to make a fantastic coach or manager or whatever he wants or chooses to do with his post-playing career. But I think there is more than enough scope to give him an extra year. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. I would still be going in the market for a right back or a Livramento type player. Wesley from Roma would fit the bill of treat. Can play as a right back or a left back. Add to that Brazilian flair. Will cost a reasonable pretty penny, but so did Livramento and Hall, and that has certainly paid dividends. I'd be giving Trippier another year. I'd be opening talks with Lewis Hall to give him a well-earned pay rise and a new deal. I think Trippier. I think Trippier needs to stay. I'm not sure he will.
Well, let us know in the comments your thoughts. For me, I have to say I think it's probably time to bid farewell to Kieran Trippier. I understand the argument about that experience and that guiding hand, and you're totally right. And I've really enjoyed watching him and Elanga on the pitch at the same time, because I can see what you're talking about. He's pointing him in the right direction. He's getting frustrated at times, but he's handling it in the right way. And I think that will be a massive boost for Elanga. And if Elanga does come good, I think it will be down partly to the help and guidance of someone like Kieran Trippier. But offering him a new deal, he's going to be one of the highest earners. He's probably
not
still
necessarily.
Well, he's still. I mean, I don't want to. I think he'll still be within the top 10 of the highest earners, most certainly. And you're looking. I mean, that's still going to be a large chunk of weekly wage going to him. And it's also whether he's got that ambition and want and desire to play first team football, or whether he's happy to sit there as a reserve player. Because if Tino Livramento is fit, then Tino Livramento plays the majority of games, and it's one of those about what does Kieran Trippier's personal ambition stand for. And would it be
there's no guarantee Livramento will even be here next season. When you pull out of contract talks, that's worrying.
But if that is the case, then Kieran Trippier isn't the replacement, is he? I just think.
No, I never said he was. That's why I said I'd go and get a Wesley from Roma, for example. I think you look around that dressing room in search of leaders. Lascelles is on his way. Yes, he's not involved in the first team picture, nor probably should he be. But you lose Trippier as well. You look around that dressing room and what's left, you're looking for a bit of leadership. Bruno, Byrne, that's about it, really. I don't really know the other big voices in that dressing room that you'd really go to war with. That would be a minor concern. I just think having him around the place would pay dividends.
Well, we disagree on that, and I'm intrigued to get the views from our listeners and viewers as well. So do tune in and chip in with your thoughts. I'm just quickly looking at the Revenue League, because you mentioned in your last answer about Aston Villa being in the top 20 and Newcastle being nowhere to be seen. I've just gone and found it. Aston Villa are ahead of Newcastle in the Delight rankings. They're 14th, but Newcastle are 17th. So Newcastle are in the top 20.
Is that the updated one? The one that came out last week?
Yeah, 2025. Now, admittedly, Newcastle's year-on-year increase is only 7%, where Villa's is massive. It's huge. It's 45%. So they have jumped up. But if you look back through the years, Villa have had small increases until this year, where they've had an increase of like 140 million euros. Work that out in your own time. Whereas Newcastle's big increase, you could argue, came last year, 288 to 372. That's a massive increase of 80-90 million quid. So not as high as what Villa achieved in the last year, but still high amounts. And I get what you're saying, and everyone's got complaints about training ground sponsors and all of this. But I still think Newcastle United are on the right, going in the right direction. They're on that upward trajectory. And just because Villa have had a sudden increase in revenue, it doesn't mean Newcastle are doing a bad job. And I'll be intrigued to see the impact that the Champions League has on that. And I think that's maybe the big thing there. Obviously, Newcastle didn't have Champions League football last season. Villa did. This season, Villa haven't, Newcastle have. So I think we'll only get a true reflection of the situation if we're going to compare both clubs once we've had that flip.
Yeah, and it will flip again after that, because, I mean, probability now suggests that Villa will be in the Champions League next season. We won't. Things can change. We're going to need some big results. And, of course, I am in hope, but it is hope rather than expectation. But to be honest, if we go into the Europa League or the Europa Conference League like Villa have done, or whoever, then that's a big chance for a trophy. Villa are favourites to win the Europa League. I would embrace the challenge of a Europa League or a Conference League to go to the backside of nowhere, to go and play. I've had a little look into flights to carry a bag away. Should we draw them in the first knockout phase? And this running the Champions League has been the saving grace to come full circle. I don't want to be put a down on it, but there are frustrations that I did have to wear, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But yeah, this Champions League run has been the saving grace, the crumb of comfort, and it's been exciting. And you know, Gordon has performed in the Champions League matches this season. We can be positive and look forward to having that second leg in the first knockout phase at St James's Park, which will be a great night, I'm sure. But look, who knows if we can go and get a win and pinch a win at PSG, because Lord knows we owe them one after last time. That disgusting refereeing decision just costing us qualification out of the group stage, out the group of death, wasn't it? So yeah, they will need no motivation, and fingers crossed we can get a win. But if we don't, it's by no means the end of the world. As I said at the top of the show, I'm quite relaxed about the situation. We've qualified out of the group stage. That was the expectation, and we can be pleased about doing so, whether it's top 8 or not.
Yeah, indeed. Fingers crossed that they do get 3 points, and they do upset the odds over in Paris. Big thanks to Sam for popping back on to the show for the Mulliner and Musgrove Show. Hopefully you've enjoyed this special Q&A. Do get into the comments, do get involved, do hit thumbs up, do hit subscribe, do leave us a rating and review, and do take advantage of your special discount on your NordVPN plan by clicking the link in the podcast description box. 1 subscription, 10 devices, and you can keep yourself safe while browsing on public Wi-Fi. Thank you as always, and we'll catch you guys very soon.